Welcome to the Week in Books. This week our book news item and our bookmark are the same thing, so if you are on Twitter or indeed on the internet, you will probably already be aware that last week Patrick Ness started a crowdfunder to help with the Syrian refugee crisis. So his initial plan was to match any amount up to £10,000 that was raised, so he put a crowdfunder live and it raised £10,000 within a couple of hours. And then on Twitter, John Green offered to match the next 10,000, and then Derek Landy, and then Jojo Moyes, and then Hank Green, and it just grew and grew and grew. By the time we've edited this, goodness knows what it will be on. So we will put the link below, and if you can, please do donate. The best thing that I got in the post this week is this anthology of essays by women under 30, and it's called I Call Myself a Feminist, and it's published by Virago. It's coming out in November, but it features 25 women who are under 30 about why they call themselves a feminist, and it's interspersed with quotes from celebrities or writers, feminists. I got this early last week and I have already read it because I was so excited to see what's in, and it's important and brave and angry and inspiring, and if you're already a feminist you'll find it really inspiring, but if you're not a feminist it's also a really clear explanation of why feminism is so important. So it's very highly recommended. It comes out on the 5th of November. My weekend reading has been something a little bit more unusual. It's this book which is called What We See When We Read, and it's by Peter Mendelsohn, who is an American book cover designer. And this just caught my attention when I was in Foyles last week. This is beautifully designed. You'll see that it's not just a kind of prose book. It's got all sorts of different illustrations and formats, and he's looking at as the title says, he's looking at the idea of what we see when we read, how our brain processes things, and what we see even when, say, characters aren't physically described, and the way that we use our own memories and experience. He uses the example of if you picture your mom and then you picture a book character, say Anna Karenina, and then the more that you think about your mum, the more detail you will be able to picture her in, but the more that you think about Anna, the fuzzier she will get, the less you'll be able to picture her, because the way we get a flash of an image but we can't focus on it. And he illustrates that example with this kind of blurry picture of a Russian woman like that. So this is really, I really enjoyed reading this. It's really witty, it's intelligent, but it's not difficult to read. A must read for people who are interested in books about books and reading. Our author interview this week is with the YA author Jenny Downham, whose debut Before I Die was a huge success and was made into a film, and her new book Unbecoming came out last week. And first of all, could you just tell us a little bit about Unbecoming?
Okay, it's about three women: Katie, who's 17, her mother Caroline, her grandmother Mary. They each have a secret, and when those secrets are revealed, they expose their true selves.
What was the kind of core, almost like seed of the idea, I guess? Was it one of the characters or a kind of general idea or a particular scene? What was the first thing that kicked it all off?
I always start a book knowing absolutely nothing, so I literally free write. I go out to cafes, I set an alarm clock, I write for 15 minutes 20 times a day and just see what happens. And what happens over weeks is that usually a person keeps appearing, so you might go, no, you're not in this, I want to write about you, and suddenly they're there.
And I know that this took
4.5 years. I took 6 months off.
Okay. Is that always your experience? Is
I'm
this
getting
particularly
slower.
long? Okay.
First book 2.5, second book 3.5, this one 4.5.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, it's about 3 generations of women, and one of them is a teenager, and this is sort of will be categorised as YA. Is that? How do you feel about that as a genre? Is it a genre? Is it a useful term?
I don't mind at all if people say, you write YA books, don't you? I usually say, yes, I do. I know that all my books have teenage protagonists, so do lots of adult books. But I like to see a book as a book. and if young people read it, if adults read it, that's fine by me. But yes, it's true, I'm really interested in writing about young people on the verge of adulthood because I find it a fascinating time.
And are there any books or authors that you would kind of cite as particular influences or inspirations?
There are authors I love, I love Donna Tartt, and I think, you know, you can read a book as a reader, but you can also read a book as a writer, and often I'll start a book thinking, right, I'm reading this book as a writer, I want to see the mechanics, I want to think, how did you do that? And then I get lost and I finish it, I think, oh no, I have to read it again, I forgot to look. So authors like that, Barbara Kingsolver, Ali Smith, I mean, there are a lot of women actually. I was thinking about this on the way here. I do read a lot of women.
And what were your favourite books when you were younger, when you were a child or a teenager?
We weren't a bookish household. We didn't have books. My mother, for instance, never read a book in her life.
Oh, okay.
And so we didn't have books at home. So I used libraries a lot, and I would go for what I liked to look on the cover. So I was probably reading stuff which I read The Rainbow very young, and my mum was horrified because she'd heard of D.H. Lawrence and thought I shouldn't be reading D.H. Lawrence. But I didn't. I just went for covers, and if I didn't like it, I put it down or swapped it for a different book.
Can you read fiction while you're writing?
Yes.
Okay. Because some people say, but I suppose if you're writing for 4.5 years, then you kind of have to be able to, don't you?
Yes. Otherwise, I forget how it worked.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Unbecoming is out now. And finally, it's our book of the week, which this week is The Wolf Wilder by Catherine Rundell, and this comes out on Thursday and is published by Bloomsbury. I'm a huge fan of Catherine Rundell. Her book, Rooftoppers, is one of my all-time favourite middle grade children's books, and The Wolf Wilder is a worthy successor. It's set in Russia during the revolution, and it's about a little girl called Theo who sets off on a quest across the snow, which starts as a very personal quest to help her mother, but she meets lots of other people along the way and becomes involved in their quests and their adventures. Catherine's writing is so beautiful. I love her style, and I think that this has got one of the best first sentences of a book I've read in a long time, which starts, once upon a time, 100 years ago, there was a dark and stormy girl. And also, the book is beautifully illustrated all the way through. There's the chapter headings, and there's trees along the way, and illustrations all the way along. And the illustrations are done by, and I'm going to mangle this name, but Gelgreb Unbecoming, I think is right, but they're just beautiful and they really add to the story as well. So our book of the week is The Wolf Wilder by Catherine Rundell. So that's what we've been reading and talking about this week. Let us know what you've been reading, and we will see you next week.